Endless green. Imagine you're sitting by the window on a flight across South America. You glance outside expecting to see towns, roads, maybe the occasional village. Instead, there's nothing, just an endless sea of green stretching beyond the horizon. No cities, no highways, no signs of civilization. For minute after minute, the view never changes. From 35,000 feet, the Amazon doesn't even look like a forest. It looks like an ocean of trees. In fact, the rainforest stretches across 9 countries and covers an area larger than the entire European Union. You could fly over parts of it for hours and still never leave the canopy behind. At first, it's breathtaking. Sunlight glistens across winding rivers, clouds cast shadows over the canopy, and the jungle below feels peaceful, almost untouched. But that's exactly what makes it so unsettling, because beneath that blanket of green lies one of the most unforgiving environments on Earth. A place so vast that you could fit several European countries inside it and still have rainforest left over. Some parts are so remote that reaching them on foot could take weeks. Then imagine something no passenger ever wants to imagine. A loud bang. The aircraft suddenly begins descending. The cabin falls silent. You look back out of the window. The same endless forest is still there. And in every direction you look, there's nowhere to land. Fortunately, modern aircraft are incredibly safe, and situations like this are extraordinarily rare. But pilots aren't trained for what's likely to happen. They're trained for the one day something doesn't go to plan. And over the Amazon, that changes everything. Engine out. For every flight, pilots already know exactly what they'll do if something goes wrong. Long before the aircraft even leaves the runway, they've planned alternative airports, emergency routes, and backup options. It's all part of modern aviation, and it's one of the reasons flying is so incredibly safe. But over the Amazon, those options begin to disappear. Imagine you're halfway across the rainforest when an engine suddenly fails. For most modern airliners, that isn't a disaster. Aircraft are designed to fly safely on a single engine, and pilots regularly train for situations exactly like this. The real question isn't whether the plane can keep flying, it's where it's flying. Outside the cockpit windows lies nothing but endless rainforest. No highways, no open farmland, no nearby airport waiting just a few minutes away. Every second, the aircraft is carrying hundreds of people over one of the most remote places on Earth. If the pilots can reach an airport, the danger is over. But what if they can't? What if the aircraft starts running out of options? The Amazon doesn't offer a second chance. If a landing becomes unavoidable, the pilots face a terrifying reality. Somewhere below them is the world's largest rainforest, and somehow they have to find somewhere to land. No escape at first glance. It might seem simple. Find a clearing, a straight stretch of river, anything large enough to put the aircraft down safely. The problem, those places barely exist. From thousands of feet above, the Amazon can look surprisingly flat, but it's an illusion. Beneath the canopy lies a tangled maze of towering trees, flooded forests, steep valleys, and winding rivers, all hidden from view. What looks like an open space could simply be shorter trees. What appears to be solid ground might actually be a swamp. Even the rivers aren't the escape route they seem. Every option comes with enormous risk. As the aircraft continues descending, time becomes the enemy. Pilots have just moments to assess a landscape that offers almost no margin for error. And unlike landing in an open field, the Amazon doesn't forgive mistakes, because even if you somehow manage to bring the aircraft down, there's another question waiting, one that's arguably even more frightening. What happens after you survive? Still alive. Let's say the impossible happens. Against all odds, the aircraft reaches the ground. You're alive. Adrenaline is pumping, people are shouting, some are injured, others are trying to understand what just happened. For a few moments, survival feels like a miracle. Then you look beyond the aircraft and realize help isn't waiting just over the next hill. The sound of the engines is gone, replaced by the constant buzz of insects echoing through the trees. You look around. There's nothing. No roads, no buildings, no sign that another human being has ever been there. Just an endless wall of rainforest. Then reality begins to sink in. The tropical heat is relentless, while the humidity drains your energy with every step. Within minutes, your clothes are soaked through, and even finding safe drinking water becomes a life-threatening challenge. Everywhere you look, the jungle is hiding dangers. Venomous snakes lie camouflage beneath fallen leaves. Swarms of mosquitoes carry diseases like malaria and dengue fever. Even the smallest cut can quickly become infected in the hot, damp conditions. And then there's the wildlife you never see. Jaguars silently roam these forests. Caimans patrol the rivers. Venomous spiders and scorpions hide beneath logs and rocks, waiting to be disturbed. Your first instinct might be to keep walking, but that's exactly how people disappear. Without roads or landmarks, it's frighteningly easy to walk in circles, wasting precious energy while moving farther away from the people searching for you. You survived the crash, but now, you're trapped in one of the most unforgiving places on Earth. Lost forever. If you were hoping rescue would arrive quickly, think again. The moment an aircraft disappears from radar, emergency teams know roughly where to begin looking. But over the Amazon, roughly isn't good enough. This rainforest covers more than 5.5 million square kilometers, making it the largest on Earth. That's an area so vast it could swallow multiple countries whole. From the sky, the dense canopy acts like a giant green blanket. Even a large passenger aircraft can be almost completely hidden beneath the trees, making it incredibly difficult to spot from above. Rescue helicopters face the same problem. Thick cloud, sudden tropical storms, and endless miles of identical forest make every search feel like looking for a single leaf in an entire jungle. And even if rescuers know where you are, getting to you is another challenge. In many places, there are no roads, forcing rescue teams to travel by boat or on foot through dense vegetation that can slow them to just a few kilometers a day. Out here, time isn't measured in minutes, it's measured in how long you can survive before somebody finally reaches you. And for some people, that wait has felt like an eternity. Lone survivor, as impossible as it sounds, someone actually survived. On Christmas Eve in 1971, 17-year-old Julian Köpke was flying over the Peruvian Amazon when disaster struck. Lightning struck the aircraft, tearing it apart more than 3,000 meters above the rainforest. Within seconds, passengers were falling towards the jungle below. Against every possible odd, Julian survived. When she woke up, she was completely alone, still strapped to her seat, badly injured, and surrounded by an endless wall of rainforest. She had suffered a broken collarbone, deep cuts across her body, and one of her eyes had swollen almost completely shut. She called out for the other passengers. There was no reply, no voices, no rescue helicopters, only the sounds of the jungle. With almost no food and no idea where she was, panic could easily have taken over. Instead, she remembered something her father, a biologist who had spent years studying the Amazon, had taught her as a child. Follow water. Every stream eventually joins a larger river, and rivers often lead to people. So, despite her injuries, that's exactly what she did. For 11 days, she walked and waded through the rainforest, sleeping on the ground at night and surviving on little more than muddy water and the occasional piece of candy she had found after the crash. Her wounds became infected. At one point, she discovered maggots feeding inside one of the deep cuts on her arm. Using fuel she found at an abandoned boat, she poured it over the wound to force them out, a decision that may have saved her life. Just when hope was beginning to fade, she stumbled across a small logging camp. The workers who found her could hardly believe what they were seeing. Out of 92 people on board, Julian was the only survivor. More than 50 years later, her story is still regarded as one of the most extraordinary survival stories in aviation history. Because surviving the fall was remarkable. Surviving the Amazon was almost unimaginable. No way out. By now you might be thinking, if flying over the Amazon is such a worst-case scenario, why do pilots fly over it at all? Why not simply go around? The answer is, there really isn't another way. The Amazon stretches across much of northern South America, forming an enormous barrier between some of the continent's biggest cities. For countless flights every day, crossing it isn't a choice, it's the route. Turning back isn't practical. Flying around it could add hundreds of kilometers, burning more fuel, costing more time, and disrupting flights across an entire network. So every day, aircraft leave the runway knowing that, for the next few hours, one of the most remote places on Earth will be directly beneath them. Fortunately, modern aviation makes that journey incredibly safe. But there's something strangely humbling about it. Even at 35,000 feet, with some of the most advanced technology ever built, nature still decides where your options end. And over the Amazon, there are very few. Final check. One thing passengers rarely think about is just how much preparation happens before a flight ever leaves the ground. Long before takeoff, pilots study weather systems, fuel requirements, alternative airports, and every stage of the route ahead. Nothing is left to chance. If a route crosses remote regions like the Amazon, that planning becomes even more important. Every decision is made with one goal in mind. If something unexpected happens, there must always be a plan. That's why pilots spend years practicing emergencies in advanced simulators, repeating engine failures, electrical faults, and countless other scenarios until their responses become second nature. Most of those situations will never happen in a real aircraft, but if they ever do, there isn't time to stop and think. You simply react. Fortunately, that's exactly why commercial aviation is one of the safest forms of transport in the world. Passengers may never notice the preparation taking place before every flight, and that's exactly the point, because the safest flight is the one where nobody ever realizes how much planning, training, and professionalism went into getting everyone safely to their destination.